We grow up being told that being nice is a virtue, that kindness opens doors, that patience brings blessings, that goodness attracts reward. But what if that's only half the truth? What if, in the name of being nice, we've been unconsciously pushing abundance away? Before we go deeper, I want you to do something simple. Comment below a phrase that represents how you feel about this idea. Something like, I want to be kind without being small, or I'm ready to value myself as much as I value others. Why? Because when you write it, you anchor it. You transform a thought into something physical, a declaration to yourself and to life that you're awake, aware, and ready to grow. This might be uncomfortable to hear, but being nice can quietly keep you broke. Not just financially, but spiritually, emotionally, even energetically. I learned this the hard way. For years, I believed that self-sacrifice was a form of holiness. I thought saying yes was love and saying no was pride. I thought that if I just stayed patient and humble, good things would come on their own. But the truth was different. Every time I silenced my needs, underpriced my work, or apologized for existing too loudly, I wasn't building virtue, I was leaking value. Jewish wisdom teaches that true kindness, chesed, is divine. It's sacred. But it must always be balanced with gevurah, strength, discipline, and self-respect. Without that balance, kindness turns to weakness. It becomes a tool of self-erasure instead of creation. We call it being nice, but often it's fear wearing a smile. Fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of being seen as selfish. I've met countless good people, gentle souls, generous hearts, who give endlessly yet never seem to move forward. They light the candles for everyone else but forget to warm their own homes. They say it's okay while their hearts whisper, it's not. They think their humility makes them holy, but what it really makes them is invisible. And invisibility has a cost. The world can't reward what it doesn't see. So in this journey, we're going to expose the 7 hidden ways that being nice keeps us small, tired, and broke. You'll recognize these habits in your own speech and your posture, in the tiny ways you negotiate your worth without noticing. But you'll also see how ancient wisdom, clear, grounded, and unapologetic, can restore balance. Because kindness without self-respect is incomplete. By the end, you won't stop being kind. You'll start being powerfully kind, the kind that uplifts you as much as it uplifts others. And before we can do that, we need to understand what real kindness actually means. Because Jewish wisdom draws a sharp line between kindness that expands the soul and niceness that drains it. Let's step across that line together. In Hebrew, the word for kindness is chesed, a force that gives life, not just comfort. But Jewish wisdom teaches that chesed cannot exist without gevurah, its counterpart, discipline, structure, and justice. Kindness without boundaries becomes chaos. Generosity without discernment becomes depletion. And that's where most of us mistake being nice for being good. When I first began studying this, it felt like someone had pulled back a curtain I didn't know was there. I realized I wasn't truly practicing kindness. I was practicing avoidance. I wasn't giving because I loved, I was giving because I feared the discomfort of saying no. I didn't want to appear cold, difficult, or selfish. So I smiled, agreed, and slowly disappeared beneath the weight of my own compliance. There's a story told by a rabbi about a man who gave away his bread every day until he starved. When people asked why he didn't keep a piece for himself, he said, "Because others needed it more." The rabbi replied, "And now that you have nothing left, who will feed them tomorrow?" True kindness sustains the giver and the receiver. Anything else is spiritual vanity disguised as virtue. Being nice often means prioritizing peace over truth. But emet, truth, is central in Jewish thought. It's one of the divine foundations of the world. A peace built on dishonesty or suppression isn't peace at all. It's temporary quiet before collapse. That's why being too nice, too compliant, too eager to please, slowly eats away at prosperity. It replaces clarity with confusion. You give when you should negotiate. You apologize when you should affirm. You shrink when you should stand. Think about it. How many times have you said it's okay when it wasn't? How often have you given a discount, accepted extra work, or held your tongue just to keep harmony? You think you're maintaining balance, but what you're really maintaining is an imbalance that favors everyone but you. Jewish ethics encourage generosity, but they also honor tzedek, justice. Giving justly means giving in alignment with divine order. It honors your energy as sacred currency. Every act of service should leave you more whole, not less. When you understand this, being nice transforms. It's no longer a reflex. It becomes a conscious act. You begin to ask, is this kindness nourishing or draining? Is it born of love or fear? And the answers shape your relationship with abundance. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. The universe doesn't reward self-erasure. It rewards self-respect. Kindness, aligned with strength, creates prosperity. Kindness rooted in weakness breeds exhaustion. And the first hidden cost of that exhaustion begins somewhere small, so ordinary that most people never notice it. It starts in how we give our time, our effort, and our value away for free. The first habit that keeps nice people broke is this: being endlessly available without asking for value in return. It starts innocently enough. You help a friend with their project. You stay late to finish someone else's work. You give advice that took you years to learn, for free. You tell yourself it's kindness, community, humility. But quietly, you're teaching the world that your time costs nothing. I remember when I first realized this. A colleague once said, "You're always so generous with your time. You never charge enough." I smiled, thinking it was a compliment. But what he really meant was, "You're easy to use." Those words stung because they were true. I believed that saying yes was the path to favor. I thought if I gave enough, people would eventually give back. They rarely did. In Jewish wisdom, there is a concept called avodah, sacred work. Work is not punishment, it's partnership with creation. Every effort, when valued, becomes holy. But the holiness fades when we give what is sacred without reverence for its worth. The Torah says that even priests received their portion for service. Nothing divine was ever meant to be free. It was meant to be fair. When you keep giving your energy without balance, the universe mirrors that imbalance. Opportunities that could bring increase pass you by because your language tells life, "I don't need more." You end up surrounded by people who take, not because they're cruel, but because you've trained them to. Psychologically, this habit runs deep. Many of us learned as children that love must be earned through service. We internalize that being helpful equals being safe. So we overextend, overgive, overpromise. We confuse exhaustion with virtue. But the truth is, overgiving isn't selflessness. It's self-neglect wrapped in a smile. I remember finishing a week where I had helped everyone but myself. My phone buzzed with thank you messages, yet my chest felt hollow. My bank account didn't reflect the effort. My body felt heavy. That's when I realized I wasn't being kind, I was being drained. Jewish wisdom calls for balance. Chesed, kindness, and din, judgment, must coexist. To give without boundaries is to break divine symmetry. You can't pour endlessly from a cup that never refills. The vessel must be honored as much as the water it carries. So if this habit feels familiar, ask yourself, how many times have I said yes when I meant maybe? How often have I given my skill, my time, or my attention without asking for fair exchange? Because the moment you start valuing your energy, the world does too. And when you don't, it quietly devalues you. But the next habit is trickier. It doesn't involve giving too much. It involves holding too little ground. It's the habit of avoiding conflict, mistaking silence for peace. The second habit that keeps nice people broke is the fear of conflict, the quiet urge to keep the peace at all costs. You know that moment when your throat tightens, when your instinct says, "Speak up," but another voice whispers, "Don't cause trouble." That whisper is the sound of your abundance slipping away. For years, I mistook avoidance for maturity. I thought silence was strength, that letting things go made me noble. When clients underpaid or partners overstepped, I smiled and said, "It's okay. It wasn't. Every time I swallowed the truth to keep harmony, I built resentment, and resentment always collects interest. In Jewish wisdom, peace, shalom, is sacred. But peace built on silence is fragile. It's not peace, it's paralysis. The sages teach that true shalom requires emet, truth. Without truth, peace is just a pause before collapse. When you avoid conflict to protect relationships, you're not keeping peace. You're trading authenticity for temporary comfort. And comfort, as it turns out, is very expensive. The Torah tells stories of prophets who risked everything to speak truth to power. They weren't cruel, they were courageous. Their words restored balance where silence had allowed decay. That's the spiritual function of confrontation. It realigns what has drifted out of order. But modern niceness has turned confrontation into a sin. We think standing up for ourselves is aggression, that asking for fair pay is greed, that saying no is unkind. So we nod, agree, discount, compromise. We call it diplomacy, but often it's fear in polite clothing. I once worked with a man who consistently delayed payments. I told myself, he's struggling, be patient. Months passed, the same pattern continued, and my kindness turned into quiet bitterness. One day I realized, my fear of discomfort had cost me more than money. It had cost me integrity. Psychologically, avoidance feeds scarcity. When you don't voice your boundaries, you teach yourself that your needs don't matter. That belief seeps into everything, your business, your relationships, your self-worth. Silence doesn't make others respect you. It convinces them you're fine being ignored. Jewish ethics remind us that even peace must be just. Do not stand idly by the blood of your neighbor. The something went wrong while generating the response. If this issue persists, please contact us through our help center at help.openai.com. The second habit that keeps nice people broke is avoiding conflict to keep the peace. You know that uneasy moment when someone crosses a line, pays you late, undervalues your work, interrupts your boundaries, and you swallow your discomfort just to stay civil? That's the moment peace turns poisonous. It feels like calm on the outside, but inside something begins to rot. I used to call it patience. I'd tell myself, it's not worth the argument. But after a while, I noticed that my silence was costing me more than any disagreement ever could. Every time I stayed quiet when I should have spoken, I made a quiet trade, my comfort for someone else's convenience. Jewish wisdom places immense value on emet, truth. In Hebrew, shalom, peace, doesn't mean the absence of conflict. It means wholeness, alignment, integration. You cannot build true peace on false harmony. The Talmud even says that when truth is hidden, blessing departs. Why? Because dishonesty, even soft dishonesty, breaks divine order. When you avoid confrontation to appear kind, you disrupt that order. You tell the universe, my truth doesn't matter, and the universe listens. The flow of prosperity slows because prosperity thrives on clarity. Money, opportunities, respect, they all move toward people who are clear about their boundaries. I remember a client who kept asking for extra revisions beyond what we agreed. I told myself it wasn't worth the fight. Be nice, I thought. It'll pay off later. It didn't. It paid in resentment. By the time the project ended, I wasn't proud. I was drained. My silence had bought temporary approval and permanent exhaustion. Avoiding conflict doesn't preserve relationships. It breeds quiet bitterness. It teaches others that your limits are negotiable. It teaches you that your voice is expendable. And both are dangerous lessons. Jewish thought holds that even God in creation used gevurah, restriction, boundaries, to form the world. Without it, everything would have remained infinite and undefined. In the same way, your no gives shape to your yes. It tells life where to flow and where to stop. Without boundaries, your blessings have no structure. They spill and scatter until nothing remains. There's an old proverb that says, "A man who avoids the fire of words will burn in the silence of regret." That line struck me deeply. It reminded me that discomfort is not the enemy. Disconnection is. So if you often avoid confrontation to stay nice, ask yourself, what is my silence protecting? My peace or my fear? Because the peace you're protecting might actually be the cage you built around your own voice. And that leads us straight into the next trap, one that wears the mask of humility. It's the habit of shrinking your light so you don't outshine anyone else. The third habit that keeps nice people broke is humble understatement, the quiet art of pretending to be smaller than you are. You know those moments when someone compliments your work and you rush to say, "Oh, it's nothing," or when you downplay your success to make others comfortable. That's not humility. That's self-erasure disguised as virtue. I used to do this constantly. If someone praised my ideas, I'd joke, "I just got lucky." When I achieved something meaningful, I'd whisper about it instead of standing tall. I believed that staying humble meant hiding, but in truth, humility isn't about making yourself less. It's about recognizing your light and using it wisely. In Jewish wisdom, true humility is called anava. Moses is described as the most humble man, yet he stood before Pharaoh, performed miracles, and led a nation. His humility wasn't silence, it was service. He knew his power came from a higher source, but he never denied that he had it. That's the difference between being humble and being invisible. When you constantly minimize your worth, you send two messages into the world. One, that your gifts are not valuable, and two, that others should treat them that way. The world mirrors your tone. If you whisper your worth, life whispers its rewards. There's also a psychological pattern behind it. Many of us learned that being praised is dangerous, that shining too brightly provokes envy or rejection. So we shrink, thinking we're protecting relationships. But in doing so, we dim the very light that could guide others. Hiding your gifts doesn't inspire anyone. It deprives them of example. I remember once sitting in a meeting where everyone pitched their ideas timidly. I hesitated to share mine, afraid it might sound arrogant. But I finally spoke, and it changed everything. The client later told me, we needed someone who believed in their own vision. That moment taught me that false modesty serves no one. In Jewish mysticism, tiferet, beauty, comes from balance. It's the harmony between humility and confidence. To deny your value is as unbalanced as pride. Both disconnect you from truth. So if you've been playing small, thinking it's the nice thing to do, remember, dimming your light doesn't make others shine brighter. It just leaves the room darker. Start with language. Replace "it's nothing" with "thank you." Replace "I got lucky" with "I worked hard and I'm grateful." These small shifts rewire how you see yourself and how the world sees you. Because prosperity doesn't come to those who hide their gifts. It flows to those who honor them. And yet even those who honor their value sometimes fall into another trap. It's the habit of giving endlessly, without boundaries, without rest, believing that real kindness means never saying enough. The fourth habit that quietly drains prosperity from nice people is giving without boundaries. It's the belief that kindness means endless availability, that love demands exhaustion, that saying no makes you selfish. It's one of the most praised and most destructive habits of all. I know this one intimately. I used to pride myself on being dependable, the one who never said no, who stayed up late to help, who carried extra weight so others wouldn't have to. People admired it. They called me generous, compassionate, selfless. But beneath the praise was a fatigue so deep it blurred the edges of joy. In Jewish wisdom, generosity, tzedakah, is sacred. But it is meant to function within tzedek, justice. That means giving with balance, fairness, and integrity. The act of giving is holy only when it doesn't violate the giver's wholeness. A cup that never refills will eventually pour dust. When you give without boundaries, you start to confuse depletion with devotion. You think, if I'm tired, it means I'm doing good. But depletion doesn't make you holy, it makes you hollow. The world doesn't need your exhaustion. It needs your vitality, your clear energy, your full presence. There's an old parable about two rivers. One gives water to every field until it runs dry each summer. The other flows steadily, sometimes saying no, refusing to overextend, but always nourishing those within reach. The second river sustains life because it honors its own rhythm. Boundaries aren't barriers, they're sacred banks that keep blessings from flooding into chaos. I learned this after a season of relentless giving. I was helping everyone, mentoring, volunteering, saying yes to every favor. And yet, my finances sank, my energy drained, and my creativity vanished. One night, I stared at my empty bank account after helping someone for free, and for the first time I realized I wasn't helping people out of love. I was helping them out of guilt. Jewish mysticism teaches that creation itself required contraction, tzimtzum, the act of God pulling back to make space for others to exist. Even the divine has boundaries. If infinity must contract to create, how can we believe that endless giving is noble? When you start setting limits, something miraculous happens. You stop giving from fear and start giving from fullness. Your yes becomes clean. Your no becomes kind. The people who truly value you remain. The ones who only valued your convenience drift away, and that's a blessing disguised as loss. So ask yourself, where in your life have you been pouring from an empty cup? Where has being nice cost you your rest, your money, or your peace? Because until you protect your energy, your generosity will keep turning into resentment. And yet, even with boundaries, there's another habit that hides beneath the surface. A quieter one that disguises itself as purpose. It's when service stops being a choice and becomes your entire identity. The fifth habit that quietly keeps nice people broke is confusing service with self. It's when helping others stops being something you do and becomes who you are. You start defining your worth by how much you give, by how much others need you. Service becomes identity, and that identity, while admired, can quietly cage you. I fell into that cage for years. People called me the one who always helps. It sounded beautiful, almost noble. But slowly I realized I didn't know who I was without someone to save. My value came from being useful, not from being fulfilled. And when no one needed me, I felt invisible. Jewish wisdom honors service deeply. It calls it avodah, sacred work. But it also insists that the work must be conscious, not compulsive. To serve without awareness is to become a slave to your own goodness. There's a verse in the Talmud that says, "A kindness that breaks the self is no kindness at all." It means that real service uplifts both giver and receiver. False service exhausts the giver and enables the receiver. When you serve from emptiness, you start resenting the very people you wanted to bless. You start to feel unseen, unappreciated, unbalanced. And resentment is a warning. It means your giving has lost alignment. True generosity is grounded in freedom. You choose it. You don't need it to prove your worth. Psychologically, this habit often begins in childhood. We learn that being good means meeting others' needs. We equate usefulness with love. So as adults, we become over-responsible, taking care of everyone, anticipating problems before they exist, apologizing for saying no. But that pattern blocks prosperity, because prosperity flows where ownership lives. If your life belongs entirely to others, abundance has nowhere to land. I remember one evening when I was juggling 3 favors at once, helping a friend move, editing someone's resume, reviewing a project, all unpaid, all just to help. At the end of the night, I looked around my apartment, messy, dark, unfinished. It struck me that I had poured my energy into everyone else's growth while neglecting my own. My life felt like an echo of other people's needs. In Jewish mysticism, there's an idea called shefa, divine flow. It teaches that abundance comes through vessels strong enough to contain it. When you lose yourself in service, your vessel cracks. You can't hold what heaven wants to pour. So here's the truth. Serving others is holy, but sacrificing yourself to serve is not. You can only give sustainably when you know where you end and others begin. Ask yourself, who are you when no one needs you? Can you still feel valuable? Because when service becomes identity, prosperity slips through your fingers like water, and this leads to the next hidden habit, one that doesn't come from service, but from fear. The tendency to stay small so others won't feel uncomfortable when you rise. The sixth habit that keeps nice people broke is the choice to stay small so no one feels threatened by your growth. It's the quiet, polite self-shrinking we perform to keep others comfortable. We call it humility, but really it's fear. Fear of envy, fear of judgment, fear of losing love if we dare to expand. I used to believe that success should be modest, so modest that it didn't make anyone else insecure. If something went well, I'd hide it. If I achieved something meaningful, I'd share it softly, almost apologetically. I thought this made me kind. In truth, it made me invisible. In Jewish tradition, there's a concept called Pirsum Hanis, to publicize the miracle. It teaches that when light comes into your life, you are meant to let it be seen. That visibility isn't vanity, it's testimony. To dim your blessing is to reject the divine generosity that gave it to you. The sages say, "He who hides his lamp invites darkness back." When you keep yourself small, you block the flow of expansion not only for yourself, but for everyone who could be inspired by your example. Your light isn't meant to dominate others, it's meant to guide them. But when you silence your achievements, when you decline to shine, you send a subtle message to life: I'm not ready for more. Psychologically, this habit comes from conditioning. Many nice people were raised to believe that standing out is selfish. Maybe you were told, "Don't brag," or saw someone punished for their confidence. Over time, you learned that visibility equals danger, so you stayed small, convincing yourself it's safer that way. But staying small has a cost. Opportunities pass by those who hide, recognition skips over the quiet achiever, and eventually, your soul begins to ache, not for fame, but for fulfillment. Because every time you shrink, you betray your own potential. I once coached a friend who had a brilliant idea for a business but kept delaying her launch. "I don't want people to think I'm showing off," she said. Months later, someone else launched a similar idea and thrived. She watched in silence, torn between admiration and regret. That's what happens when niceness turns into hesitation. The world keeps spinning, but you remain stuck on pause. Jewish wisdom honors, or light, as both responsibility and blessing. To hide your light is to withhold hope from others. When you stand in your full truth, you give others permission to do the same. That's not arrogance, it's leadership. So ask yourself, in what areas of your life are you keeping yourself small for someone else's comfort? Who benefits from your silence, and who might be waiting for your light? Because the most dangerous kind of smallness isn't physical, it's spiritual. And when you silence your light long enough, something even subtler begins to fade. Your voice, your vision, your declaration of what you truly want. The seventh and most subtle habit that keeps nice people broke is silence. The decision not to speak your desires, not to name your goals, not to voice your worth. It's the habit of staying quiet about what you want, because you don't want to appear demanding, boastful, or greedy. But silence is not humility. It's surrender. There was a season in my life when I spoke constantly about helping others, but never once said out loud what I needed. I believed that if I was good, life would simply reward me. It didn't. Instead, I watched others, less talented, less patient, succeed, not because they were better, but because they spoke. They asked. They declared. And I realized that heaven responds to sound, not secrecy. In Jewish mysticism, creation began not with thought but with speech, and God said, "Let there be light." Words are not decoration, they are instruments of formation. To name something is to invite it into existence. That's why silence is so costly. It delays creation itself. When you don't voice your dreams, they linger in potential but never manifest. You might visualize them, pray for them, write them in journals, but until you speak them, they remain unanchored. Jewish wisdom calls this koch hadibur, the power of speech. It's said that speech bridges the spiritual and material worlds. Without it, even divine intention remains unfulfilled. Psychologically, silence often masquerades as safety. We fear rejection, envy, or failure, so we hide our ambitions under the cloak of privacy. We tell ourselves we're being modest, but inside we're afraid our dreams might not survive daylight. The problem is, silence gives the same result as failure. Nothing changes. I remember the first time I said aloud, "I want to build something sacred that also prospers." The words felt strange, almost forbidden, like I was breaking an unspoken rule. But something shifted instantly. My spine straightened. My breath deepened. Within weeks, opportunities began to appear. Doors that had stayed closed suddenly opened. It was as if life had been waiting for me to speak the password. In the Torah, the prophet Isaiah writes, "I will not keep silent for Zion's sake." Silence is seen as neglect of destiny. Your voice is not arrogance, it's participation. Each time you declare your truth, you remind creation of its unfinished work. So if you've been hiding your vision, it's time to unbury it. Say it aloud, even if no one else hears. Speak it into your room, into your morning, into your prayer. Because the vibration of your own voice carries authority that thought alone cannot match. Silence feels safe, but it keeps your life small. Speech feels risky, but it awakens your future. And now that every hidden habit stands revealed, there remains one final step, the transformation that turns kindness from weakness into wisdom, from poverty into power.